Despite their incredible sacrifices, loving and serving the people did not come with retirement plans or financial security. So, now it's our time to honor their legacy and ensure that they are cared for with the dignity they deserve. You can help by attending and supporting A Night with the Panthers, Saturday, February 22nd, 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Project 43 Team Post Center, 6841 Crenshaw Boulevard, Los Angeles. For more information, contact Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. That's Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. I
dedicate this song to recession, depression, and unemployment. This song's for you.
Today's a new day, but there is no sunshine. Nothing but clouds, and it's dark in my heart, and it feels like a cold night. Today's a new day, but where are my blue skies? Where is the love and the joy that you promised me? Tell me it's alright.
I'll be honest with you.
I almost gave up, but a power that I can't explain fell from heaven like a shower now.
When I think how much better I'm gonna be when this is over.
I smile, even though I hurt, see I smile. I know God is working, so I smile. Even though I've been it for a while.
What you do?
I smile.
KBLA Talk 1580. Oh my goodness. The women are on the march. We're on the move. We're on the roll. Thank you so much, ladies, for stepping up this morning. It is a trying time, and the doctors are in. We are being joined this morning by my colleague who has a show Saturday at 5 p.m. She is on a mission to help heal relationships. I'm talking about Dr. Jeshana Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. How are you this morning?
I'm blessed, even more blessed to hear your voice. How are you?
You know what? Honestly, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, you're
I'm
exhausted.
but I'm here.
no.
No, I'm exhausted. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But
I bet
yeah,
you are
I'm
exhausted.
here, and I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, you're exhausted. I'm assuming pressed into service. Also joining me right now, I don't know if this is first. I'm not sure. Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford has a show Sunday mornings at 8. She is a pastor and also a psychologist. Dr. Sunshine, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Dominique.
Good
to be here.
Yeah, good to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I am treading this water. 2025 came in like no other. So I'm just treading the water like everyone else.
Yeah. Well, you started off, Dr. Jeshana Johnson, Dr. J, saying you're exhausted, and I'm assuming it's because everybody is coming to you to help them find balance or help them not freak out.
Yes, it really has to do with holding a lot of space for my clients who are struggling with the political climate, this new administration, what to do. And at the root of all of this collective trauma that they are experiencing is safety. And so really trying to hold space for that has been tiring. I went to bed at 8 o'clock last night and have been going to bed early just because I'm tired.
And I assume it's the same thing happening with you, Dr. Sunshine, that people in the ministry and in your practice are just needing more support.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double whammy because we have, we're trying to
bounced back from the calamity that happened with the fires. And I feel like the whole country is under fire when you talk about the political climate as well. There's so much uncertainty. And as therapists, we don't always have these answers. It's particularly with what's going on politically and what, you know, our futures look like, and how to navigate and respond to a lot of the changes that are occurring in our, you know, in the political landscape with this new Trump administration. And at the same time, there are people in my practice and in my church and ministry who have families who lost their homes in the fires and have nothing. So, or lost jobs, and all of that is going on. So there's so much uncertainty to navigate. You know, Dr. Jeshana said, just trying to hold space for people and be a container for them in these uncertain times. It's a tricky thing to do, you know?
So,
I think too.
Oh, go ahead.
To piggyback on that, Dr. Sunshine, we know that trauma is not necessarily an event, but when something happens, when it's too much, too fast for the inner resources that we have, we're dealing with fires, we're dealing with this political climate. It's too much right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for those of us who are not trained therapists like both of you are, and for whatever reason, I said maybe it's because I'm chronologically gifted. I don't know. But for whatever reason, some of us have a lot of friends and family that want us to help them. And I'm not trained to do that. What's the best way for us to hold that space?
I think you use the word trained to do it. You know, I often talk about this on my show and in session, and I always say a good friend is like good therapy. Sometimes we don't need formal training to hold space, to be available and to do what you can, to be empathetic with people and to join people in the struggle. Sometimes knowing that there is someone who cares, that you can lean on, talk to, that those kinds of things mean a lot. And then of course you have boots on the ground, you know, scrambling to pull together resources and make sure people get them. But if each person does what it is that is within their reach to do, it's all helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I've learned is sometimes just listen and don't even have to fix it or try to fix it.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Dr. Jeshana Johnson, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's probably more important to just validate their experiences without inadvertently, like, blaming them for it. Like, sometimes we can just say, like, do more self-care, do more this, do more that. And that really can put the blame on the person who is experiencing all of these, situations. There's not enough self-care that you can do to deal with what is happening in our world right now. That's
really interesting. So even saying do more self-care it can be taken as blaming, because it's saying you're the problem because you're not doing enough to feel better, when in reality, you know, all hell is breaking loose.
We have to acknowledge the systemic oppression that is happening, that is also playing a huge role in how depression and anxiety and mental health playing out. And you know, self-care was hijacked by this capitalist kind of society that if you just do your hair, if you just do your nails, like, you're going to feel better. And that's not the case.
Yeah, and what even is self-care, right? Under that formula, right. Self-care costs a lot of money. It's not just sitting still and getting rest. And I want to talk about, when we come forward, some of the tools that are helpful for people, and that are not blaming. But there's already some questions and conversation in this chat as well that I would like to address. Jerry Anderson asking a really great question: how do you keep disengagement from being unhealthy in itself, going into, and I'm adding this part, like isolation or avoidance? We have a lot to talk about, as usual. KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Attention. Have you racked up $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is notifying consumers about significant debt relief options currently being made available to help those with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of credit card debt for those who qualify. You don't need to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan, and you may only have to pay back a fraction of what you owe, even if you have bad credit. National Debt Relief has already reduced the credit card debt for more than 550,000 consumers, so don't wait. If you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in credit card debt, you can now take advantage of this financial debt relief as the cost of living continues to skyrocket. To check what debt reduction you may qualify for, call 800-237-8585. That's 800-237-8585. Again, that's 800-237-8585.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And you are super blessed to be waking up with Dr. Jeshana Johnson and Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, both of them licensed psychologists. And, you know, dealing with where we are in this moment, it does feel like a lot. It does feel like a lot with the fires and then the smoke and then the inauguration, and everyone seems to have their own personal stories. For us here at KBLA, we had to part with our beloved Robin, and it's kind of felt like one thing after another. And some are saying, let me unplug, let me get off this television, let me get off, remove myself from the news. So I think Jerry Anderson's question about how to disengage without being unhealthy is a fair one. Do you want to start, Dr. Jeshana Johnson?
Yes. I think having boundaries with like our media and social media and just being inundated with information about what's going on is really, really important. The brain does not know the difference between reality and imagination. It also doesn't know the difference between what's happening to you and what's happening to someone else. So when all of this is happening and we're constantly taking it in, our body is doing what it has to do to survive. The sole purpose of our body is to survive. And so if it is taking all of this in, at the root of all of this is a lack of safety then we're going to produce cortisol. We're going to be in this fight or flight. So boundaries around media and social media and news is super important. The other thing is that resting is one thing, and I'm not just talking about sleep. Resting, things that are pouring back into you, is important. But being in community is going to be the key. Being in community where you feel supported, where people understand your experiences, and they can provide mutual care. That you're not just pouring into other people, but that people are also pouring into you. You had Dr. Holmes on your show Monday, I believe. Dr. Holmes and I are in what we call a group called Chocolate Squares. It's a bunch of women psychologists. We get together and we just bounce ideas off of things, and we eat and we socialize. Dr. Sunshine and I are in a book club together. We get together and we read books, and it helps take us out of what is going on for a moment to have these discussions and relax. That's resting. And that is important for our bodies.
Do you want to build on that, Dr. Sunshine? I mean, I love the distinction that Dr. Jeshana Johnson makes here between resting, which is actually sleep, lay down, drink some water, rest your eyes, and isolating, and how important being in community is. Do you want to build on this idea of how we disconnect without isolating or without making matters worse?
Yeah, I think specifically in the Black community, we are kind of conditioned to feel like if we're not doing something, like actually doing something, then we're not doing something. You know what I mean? So I think I think part of it is, it's giving ourselves permission to disengage when needed. Disengaging doesn't mean indifference. And I think it's important in times like this, when it's just too much, things are just too heavy, to give yourself permission to step back. And, you're not required to be engaged and engulfed 24/7. And, rest is work. Rest is a form of resistance. You don't have to burn out to stay informed or to make a difference. It's okay to pop up, do what you got to do, and then, go back into rest mode. And to build on what Dr. J said, taking fast, like literally a fast from the news for a period of time, because we do need to stay in the know, from social media, a day, a weekend, just a small mental rest can help. Those are restorative things that we can do to mentally take care of ourselves.
CW Real Estate says, don't read the comments on social media. That has helped me avoiding the Neanderthals. And that is interesting, because we know some specific parts of social media that are going to be more toxic than others. The other thing I'll ask about is this idea of obsessing on the future. And this is what I've gotten from a lot of friends and family. What happens next? What if he does this? What if he does that? What if America this? What if America that? And of course, like you said, we want to stay on top of stuff, but how do we not get caught up in a loop of fear based on speculation of this kind of flooding of the zone that's happening right now out of Washington, where we're just being hit with one after one after one after one outrageous story, proposition, plan. We can go the other way around and start with Dr. Sunshine in this, and then go to Dr. Jeshana Johnson, because I think this is the number one thing that I'm seeing with people, is this kind of worry about the future.
Yeah, and there's a cause for it. I think, first of all, Dr. J said it earlier, let's validate the feeling. I have my degree. I've been working with people for years, and I am concerned. So let's begin by validating the fear. But also, our minds naturally try to fill in questions, when there's question marks and blank spaces. So when we have questions that we can't answer, blank spaces, we can't fill in the blanks, then that's where the fear comes from. And it's anxiety provoking. So I think it's in these instances, in these cases, get in the know. Like, what are the facts? Let's try to minimize the question marks and blank spaces as much as possible, and not to hyper focus on the things we don't know, or to create answers when we don't know. Our minds tend to naturally go into worst case scenarios. So when we don't have the answer, we go to the worst case scenario.
Right.
So I would avoid trying to answer questions we don't know and get facts, because facts wipe out, fear.
Yeah. And, it's funny because also social media has a tendency to do that. I saw it was all over social media. The federal agencies will not be celebrating Black History Month. Well, that may happen, but it hasn't happened yet, right? It was just something that got legs and ran off on its own. That's actually not a fact at this point. So fact checking could be helpful. Well, it is for me. It's my job. Dr. Jeshana Johnson, how do you, what tools or strategies do you give to those of us who find ourselves obsessing on the future at this moment?
I think, too, we also have to understand that there is a historical context. When we look at epigenetics and how we get passed down trauma for 14 generations, it's important to understand, is this fear mine, or is this fear from ancestral wisdom that is happening? And so our ancestors have had to deal with a lot of this, and I say they made it through, and how can we prepare in a way that makes us feel safe? So I literally was like, I'm sure people who had to leave their country, as a refugee, probably never thought they would. And if I have to leave my country, what would make me feel at ease? I have my passport, I have this. So what is going to help me keep from going down this rabbit hole of worry? That's what anxiety is. It's really about worrying about our future, and we only have today, right now. So it's important to get into community. It's important to maybe get some ideas of what would you do if this was the case, and try to prepare in that way. The other thing is asking yourself, what do you need right now in this moment? And if getting off of social media is the thing that you need, or you need to be in community, those are the things we need to be doing instead of stirring up our nervous system. We all need a nervous system reset.
Nervous system reset, yeah.
Yes, we need a nervous system reset, and those are the things that we should be engaging with at this time. Deep breathing, yoga, these kind of things is going to help us calm our nervous system. That's where anxiety sits, in our sympathetic nervous system.
Molly Bell says, rest is a verb and verbs show action. I love that comment. I do think that, and I hope I haven't been blaming inadvertently, but I do think that looking inside is helpful, like meditation, breathing, yoga, because I find that when I start, I have to read the news. It's my job. But I find that when I start looking always outside for answers, it can sometimes add to my anxiety. Whereas if I can look inside and try to connect to God in me and God in the universe, it gives me a sense of that calm in the eye of the storm. Dr. Sunshine?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's very important and even essential to tap into self and to have a good understanding wrapped around what's actually going on inside of you. We talk about social media and we talk about the cues that we get from the outside. Like you say, if we're not careful, the news and news outlets will tell us how we feel and dictate to us how we should feel. And and guide us into what we should be believing or thinking. And sometimes we can get away from what's really going on inside of us and, be taken over by an imposter. You're taking on somebody else's thoughts or feelings. So I love the idea of centering, meditation. If you're spiritual, praying, fasting, all those things to keep you centered, to know what your real issues are. Are you really fearful, or are you told you should be fearful? So I love that.
We got news, traffic, and sports. Y'all both know it. Dr. Sunshine Show is Sunday mornings at 8. Dr. Johnson Show is at 5 on Saturdays. I'm Dominique DiPrima. I'm here every morning during the week, and we are KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. A judge temporarily halted President Trump's federal aid freeze, granting an administrative stay until at least Monday. The freeze, set for Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, affected domestic and foreign aid, but excluded Social Security and Medicare. Transgender service members are challenging President Trump's military enlistment ban. 2 LGBTQ legal groups filed a lawsuit for 6 active duty trans members and 2 aspiring enlistees. Norfolk Southern and East Palestine, Ohio are settling over a 2023 train derailment that caused a toxic spill. The railway company will provide $22 million to address the incident's impact on air, soil, and creeks. And the Federal Reserve's 2-day wraps up today. Investors believe the central bank will leave interest rates unchanged when the meeting concludes. I'm Bree Wood on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Need better hot water? Water Heaters Only makes replacing your water heater easy. With one call and great pricing, Water Heaters Only can have you back in hot water the same day, within hours of your call. Visit waterheatersonly.com. That's waterheatersonly.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers had a bad night in Philadelphia. They lost to the Sixers 118-104 and lost more troubling because the Sixers did not have Joel Embiid or Paul George. The Lakers committed 22 turnovers, 8 by LeBron. LeBron was able to drop 31 points. The Lakers are at Washington on Thursday. The Clippers are back in action tonight. They're at San Antonio. Magic Johnson is part of a new fundraising initiative created by California Governor Gavin Newsom to support rebuilding efforts for wildfire victims. Joining Magic is Dodgers Chairman Mark Walter and Casey Wasserman, lead organizer for the 2028 Summer Olympics in LA. Magic said his main focus will be the Black residents in Altadena who lost homes and property. Quote from Magic, "Those people might get left behind. I want to make sure that doesn't happen." End quote. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attention Los Angeles County renters and landlords. Starting January 1st, 2025, there are new rules limiting rent increases for rent-stabilized units in unincorporated LA County. Most rent-stabilized units will have rent increases capped at 2.565% from January through June 2025, with exceptions for qualified small property landlords and luxury units. To learn more about the new changes, visit rent.lacounty.gov. This message is brought to you by Los Angeles County Department of Consumer and Business Affairs.
You say you never give in to a meltdown and never fill your feed with kid photos. You say you'd never put a pacifier in your mouth to clean it and never let them run wild through the grocery store. So when you say you'd never let them get into a car without you there, no, it can happen. 1 in 4 hot car deaths happen when a kid gets into an unlocked car and can't get out. Never happens. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Did you know that 1 in 4 people seeking treatment for ED are under 40? HIMS can help. Get started at hims.com/joy. Through hims.com, you can access a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to hims.com/joy.
Are you a recent college graduate with a dream of getting a high-paying job in sales? A job where you can grow a lucrative career in multi-platform audio, digital, podcast, social media, and local events, along with world-class training and career growth opportunities. KBLA Talk 1580, located in historic Leimert Park, is currently hiring entry-level account executives for outside sales. Join a team featuring radio hosts Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornell West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, Dr. Nee Cordelai Corte, Zoe Williams, and our very own Dominique DiPrima. For more information on attending our upcoming career fair, contact SMB at KBLA1580.com today. Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And I'm super excited to have the women, these powerful women who are part of our KBLA team on to talk all of us into balance. Dr. Jeshana Johnson is with me, and Dr. Shalonda Crawford, aka Dr. Sunshine. Dr. Jeshana Johnson, you mentioned epigenetics, and that's kind of like what's in our DNA, right? That memory that goes between generations. And I feel like very much playing a role with this fire, our fires, but particularly the Eaton fire, where so many of our communities have been burned to the ground by angry mobs or, that kind of history. And so it feels very triggering on a deep level, the idea of the loss of generational wealth, of a thriving Black community. And sometimes we don't even realize these things are coming into play, right? And maybe the whole what's happening in Washington too. Here comes the the self-proclaimed white supremacists being released en masse from prison. Here comes the lynch mob. It's a lot of things that could be triggering on a cellular level that we might not even realize or understand why we're reacting in so many ways. How do you process that? How do I process that? Dr. J, are you there? Okay. Dr. Sunshine, can you hear me?
I can hear you. So you're asking how to process?
Yeah, how do we process that? How do we even deal with that? I mean, how do we understand it?
I'm sorry. I think I'm not even hearing the question. Say it one more time.
Okay, so when you talk about epigenetics, it's the things that are already in our DNA, already in our body, our family histories of trauma or whatever, whether it be, lynch mobs, aka 1,600 self-proclaimed white supremacists being released from prison, or whether it's Black Wall Street, our communities being burnt to the ground, and now we see what's happening in Eaton, even though it's not the same, it has similarities. When we're being triggered on a level that we are not even aware of, how do we deal with that? How do we confront it? How do we understand it?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to box the wind. Right? It's hard to box the wind. This is why I love shows like yours. I love stations like KBLA because they give us an opportunity to tap into the know, to become what I call enlightened, to know something that you didn't know before. And I often say knowing really is half the battle. When you know what you're dealing with, then you know how to go about it. You know how to treat it. And until then, it is anxiety provoking. There's something underneath there. You can't quite put your finger on it. You can't quite identify. It's like going to the doctor being tested for something and they can't figure out what it is. And there's the blessing in the diagnosis, the blessing and the curse in the diagnosis. Now that you know what it is, there's a sigh of relief. Now I can treat it. But then there's the other side. Now I have to deal with it. And that's kind of where we are. There's the confirmation for us as Black people, because we've been gaslit a lot by being told, no, these things aren't really happening. It's not really a racist country. You're really working on equality. And then things happen like an insurrection and you go, oh, wow, look what they can get away with. But further, then they're all pardoned and set free. So part of it is like, you know, there's our confirmation. See, told you. But then the other part is disheartening. But to answer your question, we know what we're dealing with. So there comes a space of acceptance. We have to accept this is what we're dealing with, grieve the reality, and then game plan. Game plan. One of the biggest struggles for us is coming together with a concerted, effective game plan. That's where we are.
I think we have Dr. J back, and following up on this idea of epigenetics that you brought up, the other question that I had in response to that, our blueprint is in our DNA, our family blueprint, which includes trauma and also includes triumph, resilience, and all the other things that we possess. And I keep saying, and I hope, I don't mean to gloss over and not acknowledge the trauma or the danger, but I keep telling myself and my friends, we were built for this. We are. Yeah. So talked about that in terms of epigenetics, that part.
Well, yeah, we are. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm here. No worries. I think I got cut off for a little bit. It's okay. Yes. So I always say, if we can pass down trauma, we can pass down healing. And so in our DNA also is resilience, right? And fighting and overcoming and resistance. Like all of that is a part of our DNA. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that it's not an individual thing. Like we are not individual failures when we experience depression or anxiety or we're worried about the future. I'm saying acknowledge that historically this has been a part of our history and our ancestors have had to deal with it and they've overcame. And so I think if we get out of make sure that we're not doing like black and white thinking, it's this way or the other, it's the and both. We have been oppressed and we are resilient. And that is the makeup of all of us. And that's important to acknowledge that. But not to just think it's all in our head or that we can just get over it. Trauma is not a get over it thing. It really is a work through. And I think I'm a push back when we say we're built for this. We are resilient. We are strong. Absolutely. Our bodies was not built for this. We happen to have to go through it and come out shining on the other side of it. But our bodies weren't built for this. Physiologically, scientifically, our bodies were not built for this, which is why we are disproportionately represented in every single health issue because of the wear and tear on our bodies and our minds. Mm-hmm. But do we come through it? Yes, we do. Can we pass down healing? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think when I say we're built for this, I'm talking about consciousness. I'm talking about the consciousness and the tradition of struggle, resistance, and when we fight, we win. That's what I mean by we're built for this. But I think it's a great point because to say like, well, we're tough, we always deal with trauma. Like that's not what I'm trying to communicate, and certainly not what I'm trying to communicate to myself. You got this. You're used to being kicked in the stomach.
But
I'm not trying to say that at all.
Dominique, but that's, and I understand where you're coming from. I agree with you. And there has been medical and science that has used this, we're tough, we're built for this, in a physiological way that has harmed us, right? Which is why they don't believe our pain. This is why there are old medical textbooks that says our skin is thicker. Like these things really do become a part of the fabric of who we have to end up being.
Yeah. That's a great point. Dr. Sunshine, it sounded like you had another detail you wanted to add.
No, I think Dr. J just covered it. I wanted to just add that if we're talking if we're talking about the DNA that was passed down to us, then we have the proof that we are resilient people. And she fleshed that out very, very well. I think it's important for us to highlight the history of resilience to give us hope in the direction that we're going, particularly in times like this, and not to overlook that huge point.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, when we come forward, I want to look at how we talk to ourselves and each other in ways that are helpful. How self-talk and the way we speak life or something else into our children and our loved ones during these times where we feel pressed. What can we do to manage that better? That's next when we continue on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. Your info is in endless places that could expose you to identity theft, leading to lost funds. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We're talking with Dr. Shalonda Crawford, a.k.a. Dr. Sunshine. She is a psychologist specializing in depression, spirituality, and grief. And also Dr. Jeshana Event Johnson, founder of the Intimacy Seminars and Psychological Services, licensed clinical psychologist specializing in family, trauma, sex, and relationship therapy. Wanted to say that because you may know them as radio hosts, but they are actually accomplished doctors. And Professor Golden in the chat says the doctors in this interview couldn't get their voices heard in corporate America. They're too smart. I love that. And I agree with it, Dr. Golden. But I want to talk about something that I heard off the air that I wanted to bring into the space on the air, which is many times when we have something as shocking, devastating, and life-changing as the Eaton Canyon Altadena fire, everything gone in an instant, the response is delayed, right? We're in shock, or we're in disbelief, or we're angry, or we're trying to survive. And we could have a delayed response of depression, anxiety, or whatever that looks like. Talk about that. Like, how long could something crop up? How would we know, or do we even need to know that it is related? And how should we kind of take care of ourselves and our family in relation to that? I'll start with you, Dr. Sunshine.
You know, it's as I listen to you. The first thing that comes to mind in traumatic situations and devastating situations, we really can go into fight or flight. So sometimes you're not pausing to deal, you're surviving the moment, and you go into a survival mode, and then later you come into the reality, or, you begin to collect the gravity of what has happened. And it can happen immediately, or it can happen insidiously. In either instance, because trauma is not always a straight line. It's not always on a straight trajectory. And oftentimes we're giving ourselves, we don't give ourselves permission to take the course that it needs to take, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. So Dr. Jeshana Johnson, how do we create space for ourselves, our families, and our communities to take that time, or to recognize it if I'm fine, and then summer I'm hit by a brick wall of depression or anxiety?
Really quick story. I was dealing with a client who's from Lebanon, and she was talking about like her parenting style, how her kids grew up, and they grew up in a time of war. And as I was sitting there, I was like, I was born into a war. If you are Black and you live in America, the war was declared on you a long time ago. And so the way we carry our bodies, if we're always carrying this tension in our shoulders and our back, like we are constantly in fight or flight. Cortisol, brain changes, all of these things are happening as a result of being in fight or flight, trying to survive, trying to make your bills paid, like all of that. And so, and which is why we end up having digestive issues and immune issues, because when you're in fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system, you're not in parasympathetic nervous system, and that's where we rest and digest. Many of us have a hard time resting because we think we don't want to be seen lazy. We feel like if we're not getting something done, then we're not productive. But rest is productive. In order for our bodies, in order for us to really connect to other people, our bodies have to be able to restore, have to be able to rejuvenate. And so we have got to do better at resting and being in community. Say nice things. Be nice. We talk just in general. We talk from a violent way. I love the book Nonviolent Communication. Talk from the best in you, not from the worst in you. Are you having a conversation with people because of your own hurt, your own injuries, the unhealed wounds? Or are you talking to people because you're pouring into them? And if we begin to just slow down, we can have better conversation, be supportive, and provide more mutual aid to each other.
It's funny you say that, because one of my projects for 2025, I'm not going to call it a resolution, is a project, is to talk nicer to myself. Because if I talk to other people the way I talk to myself, I'd be in fights all the time. I would be fist fighting all the time. People would be like, what did you just say to me? And so That was kind of one of my follow-up questions of how we can practice self-talk and extend that to our friends, family, and loved ones. In what are the tools
Dominique,
for doing that?
Dominique,
yes, ma'am.
Dominique, here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
When you talk to yourself, talk to the 6-year-old in you.
Ah, okay. Right. I would never talk to her like that. Yeah.
Right.
So that's a tool that any of us can use, right? To talk to the 6-year-old in ourselves. And when we're talking,
yes.
And when we're talking to the actual 6-year-old in our house, what do we do then?
Yes. Same
Remember
thing.
the 6-year-old you. Remember the 6-year-old you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been accused of being too soft when I talk to kids and my own kid, because I feel like we have this idea that as Black women, and men, if we don't parent in a certain way, that means we're white. I don't agree with that.
That's a trauma response.
Yeah.
And when we talk about epigenetics is also behavioral.
Right.
Right? So we pass down things. This lady talked about how she parented and protected her children and, living in a war. We also do the same thing.
Yeah.
We're harsh to our kids because we didn't want the slave master to be harsh to them. We're harsh to our kids because we don't want the police to be harsh with them. And so, yes, being gentle with your kids, we're like, if you're gentle with them, then you're not going to have a person who's solid in society. We will. They will be healthy and rested. And respected.
Well, yeah, I mean, I read that in Dr. DeGrew's book that, when we're still trying to save our kids from the slave master, and, when someone compliments your kid, you go, oh, you should see how bad they are at home, because we're having all these trauma responses. And so I would imagine that when we're in traumatic times, we have to be even more mindful of that kind of communication and behavior.
Most definitely.
All right. You guys know the clock better than I do. We just have a couple minutes left. And so what I would love to do is have each one of you take one of those minutes, and then I'll take us home to the Tavis Smiley Show. Would you like to start, Dr. J?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's important to understand how if we can't heal what we don't befriend. And so to heal our bodies, to heal our minds, we have to befriend it. How are you engaging with your mind and your body? Not just talking about it, dancing, yoga, hugging. All of these things are important. Connection. We were designed for connection. Trauma rewires us for protection. So it's super, super important to stay connected to the people that love you and love on you. Be gentle. Walk slower. Be present. Engage all your 5 senses. Stay grounded in this time of chaos.
So well said. I might have to listen back to this show. Dr. Sunshine.
My advice would be to lose the judgment. There are 3 things that I think really paralyze us and keep us still and not forward progressing. And those things are guilt, shame, and the fear of judgment. In this time and in this climate, we have nothing to feel guilty or ashamed about. But there's a lot of...
Okay, we got something crazy going on with Dr. Sunshine's phone. Guilt, fear, and the guilt, shame, and the fear of judgment. I don't know. That was a very loud sound.
I'm hoping you can hear me better now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The fear of judgment. So I think the thing that I'd like to leave you with is to no judgment. Receive yourself and give yourself the same grace through these times that we're in that you would want from others. Give yourself the grace that you need from others.
It's beautifully said. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been such a blessing to be in conversation and community with you both, Dr. Jeshana Johnson and Dr. Crawford, Dr. Sunshine. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Tavis Smiley's up next. You know he's ready to go. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Dr. J today. I love that one. She said, if we can pass down trauma, we can pass down healing. So let's do just that. Don't forget to connect with me on social media, KBLA 1580 on all platforms. And you can find me at DiPrima Radio, DiPrima, and then radio. Like my mama used to say, history is now, and we're making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. A judge temporarily halted President Trump's federal aid freeze, granting an administrative stay until at least Monday. The freeze, set for Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, affected domestic and foreign aid, but excluded Social Security and Medicare. Transgender service members are challenging President Trump's military enlistment ban. 2 LGBTQ legal groups filed a lawsuit for 6 active duty trans members and 2 aspiring enlistees. Norfolk Southern and East Palestine, Ohio are settling over a 2023 train derailment that caused a toxic spill. The railway company will provide $22 million to address the incident's impact on air, soil, and creeks. And the Federal Reserve's 2-day wraps up today. Investors believe